Thank you very much, Jim Britt, and a very pleasant good afternoon, everyone. We're very pleased to have as our first guest today Mr. Arthur Lieber. Mr. Lieber has been involved in education for probably way too many years that he wants to talk about, but he is co-founder of a non-sectarian independent school that still thrives after 35 years, current director of the education nonprofit called Civitas. His approach to education emphasizes preparing students to be active citizens rather than becoming great test takers. Our phone lines are open if you have a question for Arthur Lieber at 433-9782. Mr. Lieber, welcome to Late Afternoons. Great to have you on our program.
Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself than the educational notes that I gave the folks.
Well,
how did you get interested in education?
You know, I got interested because in elementary school and more so in high school, spent a lot of time in class thinking if I would teach, I wouldn't teach the way this person's teaching. And then on the other hand, I saw some people who I thought were really good role models. And so it got to a point where I was looking between education and getting into politics, and I chose to go with education for 40 years or so. And I it wasn't that I wanted to try to implement some pedagogy, some plan that theorists were behind. I just wanted to try and be decent with students and make learning fun, and I think we were fairly successful at that.
Where'd you grow up?
In St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at what presidents do as far as education, it seems they do a great job at naming programs.
Absolutely. I'm reading a book by Diane Ravitch now about that, and
we've had her on the program talking about it. Yes, we have.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that, she's really been able to kind of look at the change through the years and has written a new book, which I have right here, The Death and Life of the Great American School System, in which, I think she talks about all these fads that come and go, but really aren't centered towards the child and really don't recognize that each student has his or her own particular way of learning, and one approach doesn't work for everyone.
She also does a pretty much a 180 on magnet schools and charter schools, which is kind of interesting in its own right. But be that as it may, you're not a big fan of No Child Left Behind of Mr. Bush, nor Race to the Top of Mr. Obama.
That would be correct, and I think, again, for reasons that are similar to Ms. Ravitch, although I'd probably see things a little bit differently about choice. But I think that we often have, in a sense, a race to measure. We want to measure things which are not easily measured. In my years of teaching, I don't think that I can really pinpoint any time when I said, well, this kid really learned this right now. So much of it is invisible. So much of what we take in, it takes a long time to process. And those things which are important are often, beyond being able to remember what this character did in a particular novel or how to bring about this particular proof in geometry. So I think that, when we're just testing for what students know, we're trying to do something which doesn't reflect the way we learn.
Let's go back when you started in education, 40 years ago. Parents were much more involved in their children's at least attempting to do schoolwork and the such. The attention span was not 17 seconds. The schools were not given over into political correctness. There was a respect for the classics. That all seems to have been thrown out over the last 40 years. Because you went to school when, you started in the educational system about when, I about wrapped up.
Well, I have to say my first teaching was in the St. Louis public schools, and I had 40 fifth graders. And I lasted 10 weeks and then got transferred to another school with 40 fifth graders and made it through the year. I don't think there was a lot of parent interest then, but that was, really pretty hardcore inner city. I certainly agree with your contention that...
I student taught in the South Bronx, so I know exactly what you went through.
All right. Okay. And, quite frankly, I think there are times, and educators aren't supposed to say this, when you have to work in spite of how parents would be. I mean, if a child's having difficulty in dealing with authority because authority is misused at home, then you want to take a different approach, and you feel that you can develop a strategy for what's best for that student, probably not involving those students, the parents.
Now, talk about Civitas. Because, motivated students seem to be our biggest problem in this country, especially males.
Absolutely. I mean, we often talk about it. I mean, why we can't get more boys to be in our programs because, it's a veritable fountain of wonderful women who are in it. Why wouldn't you want to be there? But we try to pick up a lot of the slack that schools don't have these days, getting out on field trips, meeting with people who are not teachers, really engaging in critical thinking. For instance, we had a conference in February on rebuilding Haiti and brought in a lot of people who had been to Haiti, were trying different ideas, including trying to encourage entrepreneurship in Haiti. And students brainstormed a lot of solutions, and, I'm not going to say that any of them were new that, other people hadn't thought of, but for the kids they were. And what it did is it involved that kind of thinking that is so needed to solve adult problems. And most importantly to me, I think what they came up with is more credible than what a lot of adults do. Why? Because these kids weren't, there was no way for them to engage in corruption. They weren't looking for sweetheart deals or anything like that. They were just trying to do what could be best for Haitians.
Can the current educational system as we have it today in 2011 be saved?
I think it can.
What's going to take?
I hate to use the old line from Vietnam, we had to destroy the village in order to save it. But I think we really need to do away with 90% of bureaucracy. I think that we need to bring people into teaching who are human beings first and teachers second. So many teachers now are so professionalized, and I understand where they're coming from and how teachers have been abused. They've been underpaid. They haven't had good working conditions.
Well, the biggest problem is the best teachers, the only way to make money is to go into administration instead of keeping these wonderful people in the classroom.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think that, and that's the last place where you want those people. I mean, those people who have that ability to relate to kids, who are good teachers, you want them there. And if it means that you need to tinker with things a little bit, such as, let's say, having them teach half day, spending the other half day planning, grading, whatever, and then having their evenings free, I'd say let's do it, just so that teachers are able to be able to have a personal life, which not only recharges their batteries, but it also gives them knowledge and information, which when you get into this tunnel of professional teaching, you tend to lose.
Is the education department worth saving?
I ran for Congress this last fall.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, and one of the things I suggested was I can see why you would want an education department to engage in some limited research and so forth, but I would think that everybody working in the education department should probably teach a half day, actually stay grounded, and then I think their ideas would be a little more realistic. The top-down mandates, I think, are really, really destructive. And, I know Ms. Ravitch wrote about a situation out in San Diego where there was a program, a reading program that was presumably supposed to, pave new ground, whatever, and it just drove teachers nuts. And then, she says here, she called the San Diego office of Kaiser Permanente, the major healthcare organization in California, and spoke to a psychiatric social worker. She told me that from 1999 to 2005, San Diego teachers came to the clinic in droves with work-related depression and anxiety due to hostile work environment. I think that so long as that's happening to teachers, you're not going to have good learning going on.
Arthur Lieber, the name of your new book, Unlikely Candidate, Reflections on My Run for Congress, where is that available?
It is available on Amazon.com. We'd like to push the independent bookstores that we have here in St. Louis, and I'm sure you have some.
Yes, we do.
And we want to support them, but for anyone in your listening area, I would say Amazon would be the best
Now,
bet.
do you have a website yourself?
Yeah, it's www.anunlikelycandidate.com.
Arthur Lieber, a real pleasure. Come back and join us again, won't you?
I will. Thank you so much, Mike.
Arthur Lieber joining us today on WSVA.